Now that we have seen Michael Myers for the last time, at least until they do another reboot, it is time to look back on 44 years of terror and rank the Halloween franchise. It's been 4 years since my 31 on 31 ranking. Some of the movies have moved around a bit, and now we gotta add kills and ends to the fray. So let's go. We're gonna start this ranking at the very bottom with the movie that has not changed spots, and that is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I do not enjoy this movie for all but three things. Sheriff Brackett finding Annie. The way Brad Dourif plays that, the heartbreak you feel in that, being a father, that sings to me all day. Excellent. Scout Taylor Compton, she is awesome in this movie. Her acting chops are just on display. She crushes it. The third thing is the first 15 minutes of this movie. It is a direct inverse of how I feel about Rob Zombie's Halloween, where I'm not a big fan of the first 15 minutes of that movie. First 15 minutes of this movie are terrifying. They play out the whole scenario of Halloween 2, but in 15 minutes. It's awesome. You get Tyler Mane coming back and being pretty much the exact same Michael with a shot out of his mask. He's bloody, killing everybody in the hospital. Complete terror. Absolutely love it. It is so fucking good. And then they go off the rails, and I'm not a big fan. This is one I don't watch all that often, if ever. Coming in at number 12, very closely on the heels of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, is Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, while I'm not unable to find joy in Halloween 5, there's a lot that this movie fucks up. Michael kind of looks like ass. Tina replaces Rachel. Rachel was awesome. She should have been through this movie at least until the end and been a kill somewhere in the last act. You get the goofy ass cops with the music over them. It over goofies this movie. You get Michael Myers, who's sitting in a jail cell with his mask on still, which they wouldn't do, twiddling his thumbs and defeated. There's so much just in the essence of this movie that does not land. However, Danielle Harris does a great job. I love the actual end of Halloween 5. You have the breakout of Michael, and you have Danielle Harris crying, saying, "No, no," and then it goes to credits. That's awesome. I love the way this movie ends. The whole laundry chute scene is full of tension. Love the hell out of that. But for me, the cons are way higher than the pros in this movie, and I barely ever watch it. For number 11, this was a battle between 10 and 11 because I'm kind of on the same level with them. But number 11 is Halloween Resurrection. The beginning of this movie has one of the biggest cardinal sins for me of the entire Halloween franchise, and that is fucking up the end of Halloween H2O. I absolutely love the end of Halloween H2O. Then they cocked it up, brought Jamie Lee Curtis back, and killed her in a psych hospital with Michael chasing her, where she's not sure if it's really Michael, is it not Michael, and then she has a whole bunch of dumbass decision making. I don't dig it. However, there are a couple things in Halloween Resurrection that I like. I'm one of the very few people that genuinely enjoys Busta Rhymes in this movie. He is exactly what he should be. The character, you can decide whether or not he should have been in this movie, but as a character, as a game show host for a reality show that's going to take place in the Myers house, it's a guy who loves karate movies, probably has some training in under his belt. He plays that character perfectly. Of course, he's going to try to fight Michael Myers. Now, is all the decision making when it comes to Michael Myers great? No, but that's another thing that's a positive for me in this movie. Brad Lorre, he plays Michael very well. He has the physicality down. He looks great. And while at the end of the day, it's not one I'm going to put on all the time, if I'm going to do a Halloween marathon, I don't dread coming up on this one. Now for number 10. This is where I'm going to lose some people, and this is where the arguments are going to start. Halloween Ends. This was a movie that was built on the back of 44 years of legacy. You had 1978, you had 2018, Kills, and then Ends. This movie was building towards a final battle between Laurie and Michael. So much so that the ending words for the extended cut of Halloween Kills is, "I'm coming for you, Michael." And then you proceed to tell a story of how Michael infected Haddonfield. This guy starts to go crazy, meets Michael in the sewer, and all the crazy shit that happens after that. For me, Corey was actually the most interesting part of Halloween Ends, and had they told his story in the next movie, that would have been a million times more effective than nerfing Michael, fucking up Allison and dumbing her down, fucking with having Lindsay be absolutely nothing after what happens in Halloween Kills, and Laurie just kind of being around and not really doing anything with her on Jamie Lee Curtis's last ride. And I thought maybe watching this movie again was going to make it better for me, but it didn't. All it did was showcase even harder how much they sacrificed every other character that they'd built up to this point for the sake of telling Corey's story, which again, I would have loved in a different movie. Coming in at my birthday spot, number 9, we have Rob Zombie's Halloween. Like I said before, I am not a gigantic fan of the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie. For me, once Michael gets to the asylum, I dig that. I'm not tethered to the idea that Michael needed to go absolutely silent the moment he killed Judith. So seeing Loomis work on Michael and see how much Michael was detached from reality and how twisted he really was and his devolvement into the monster who would become Michael Myers, I surprisingly enjoyed that. And then when you get to actually telling Halloween Night and all the build up to that, I like the turns that Rob Zombie made with that. I like that you keep kind of the same essence of what the movie was from 1978, but you get a little twisty with it. You don't kill Annie until Halloween 2. You give us a story where Michael is terrifying, put Laurie in new situations that you don't know how she's going to get out of it, and you try to figure out how Loomis is going to play into it, because while he's part of the story, he very much takes a back seat to Laurie and Michael, where he's kind of more at the forefront for 1978. I like the decisions they make for Halloween Night, but everything leading up to that, it's kind of shit. Real quick, from here on out, these are all Halloween movies that I enjoy. It's just a matter of which ones I enjoy the most. And with that, we have number 8, Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. This is the one that brings Michael Myers back after being gone. Halloween 3, that experiment and how much of a fuck up that was for them, brings Michael back, makes him way more brutal than he was even in 2, and then puts him in that stupid ass mask and that stupid ass bodysuit, and completely, for me, takes a lot of the fear away. When you have Michael fail this much, it really takes away from the movie for me. The rest of the movie, pretty damn solid. It's a solid Halloween movie. Danielle Harris comes out of the gates swinging. You have Rachel, amazing. Donald Pleasance back, amazing. There's so much this movie does right, but for me, because how much Michael is in it and how much they cocked Michael up, it doesn't work for me. He doesn't work for me, I should say. If you had kept him maybe in the bandages the whole time, that would have been badass. That would have been a great solid look. But you give us this mask and then you cock up the mask a little bit when you give him the blonde with the pink. You messed up Michael. Now, where Michael doesn't work for me in Halloween 4, we get to number 7, and that is George P. Wilbur's redemption arc with Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Unfortunately, this is one of those movies where, depending on the cut you watch, it's going to be a very different experience. If you stay off the path that leads you down to incest and runes, this is a solid entry. You get Paul Rudd coming in as Tommy Doyle, which I like the way they play Tommy Doyle in this movie. He's a shut-in. He is someone who is traumatized by this dude trying to murder his babysitter. Works perfectly fine. Yes, they kill Jamie after making her the tent pole for 4 and 5, but that doesn't really bother me. You then still have Donald Pleasance going after Michael. It gets a little bit weird when you have the whole cult thing and the idea that they're trying to do this stuff for Michael, but then you have Michael go and fucking kill all of them. Murderize the fuck out of them in the hospital. I love that. It takes the idea where the whole movie, you're like, wait a second, they're gonna have Michael be control. Oh my god, they're having Michael be control. He's part of this cult and what the shit? Nope. He kills all of them. He's affected by this curse, which, okay, you can get there by this point. So he continues to go after his great nephew, wipe out his bloodline, and gets his ass beat by Tommy Doyle with a fucking pipe. I like movies where they take the fight to the slashers. I dig it. I like that they put up a fight and the victims aren't completely just weak, worthless victims. And I have to mention that this is the last ride for Donald Pleasance. It's a goodbye to him, and I think he nails it. He brings in Loomis a little bit. He's not as crazy as he was in 5. He closes out the character nicely, and I can't think of a better way to see Loomis, at least Donald Pleasance's Loomis, for the last time. For my number 6 spot, we have a movie that moved up a few spots from my last ranking, and that is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. More and more as I watch this movie, the more and more I enjoy it. Now, granted, this movie does not take place in anywhere that looks like it should be Halloween. It takes place in California. You don't have any leaves changing. It's all green. And really the only thing that keeps you in the Halloween mood is the fact that there are masks everywhere and you have that fucking commercial going over and over. But where you're lacking in Halloween essence, you get Dr. Chalice. You get an amazing soundtrack from John Carpenter, of all people, who wanted to be done with the first Halloween. So that's just I can't get over that. That's hilarious to me. And while it's hard to recognize this movie as a Halloween movie because there's no Michael Myers, and nowadays Michael Myers is pretty much synonymous with the franchise, there is a lot of Michael Myers in this movie. You have all of those robots. Even so, that one of the robots is played by Dick Warlock, who plays Michael Myers in the second Halloween. And while some of them get destroyed, they have this essence throughout where they're just robotic. They walk, they march, they kill, they move on. Very much like Michael Myers. It's a lot of fun. It drips the 80s. And yeah, I'll turn this one on every single Halloween season. Coming in at my number 5 spot, we have Halloween Kills. This is another one of those movies that I have begun to enjoy more and more as I watch it. And yes, it does have pacing issues. In the middle, when you have that whole hospital scene, I get it. I get that that slows it down for a lot of people. I actually like that because you increase the hysteria that is going on in Haddonfield because they don't know what's going on with Michael Myers. And in that scene, a lot of people have a problem with the fact that Tivoli does not look like Michael Myers because he really doesn't. But you don't have everybody seeing Michael Myers. You have one person mention, is that Michael Myers? Someone hears Michael Myers, Michael Myers, Michael Myers, Michael Myers, Myers, and it just spreads through the whole hospital and no one actually really sees him until the end when he kills himself. And then they're like, oh shit, it's not Michael. And even Laurie knows it's not Michael. Go back and watch that scene and really pay attention to how that information gets spread through the hospital. It's not that everybody sees him and everybody stops and there are 50 people that look at him and go, that's Michael Myers. You hear Michael Myers, and it just spreads. Go watch it again. You'll change your mind. This movie gives us an absolutely brutal Michael Myers on par with Tyler Maines, and that is hard to pull off. James Drew Courtney is fucking awesome in this movie. You have the firefighter fight. You pretty much every kill in this movie. I don't think there's a kill in this movie that I do not think is awesome. Every single one. Brutal, over the top, and Michael just kicking all kinds of ass. I've said it before and I will say it again. That movie is as if Michael Myers made a movie about Michael Myers. Up next at number 4, we have the original Halloween 2 from 1981. This movie is one of those rare instances where a sequel genuinely takes everything that the first one did, cranks it up a few notches, and it still works. The soundtrack, for me, is actually better than the original. You have a great new cast of victims that you kind of care about, even Bud, and it's just great. Even Dick Warlock, who I just mentioned a little bit ago, he's a solid Michael. He pulls it off very well. And it's not that I think that Halloween 2 really does anything wrong. It's just the remaining 3 on this list are more fun for me. And speaking of fun, we're going to go in with number 3 for the first Halloween movie I saw in theaters, Halloween H2O. I will admit that there are issues with Michael and the mask in this movie quite a few times, especially when they try to do CG with it. However, Chris Durand, I like him as Michael. I think he pulls off the physicality of it. Does he have a little bit too much emotion? Yeah, but that's not really his fault. When you have a mask that's literally poking on his eyes like that and you can see everything, like when he gets kicked in the balls, you have no choice but to show him be emotive. But there is a lot that this movie gets right. For example, Jamie Lee Curtis and her role in Laurie Strode with extreme PTSD, but at the same time, trying to move on, trying to make it functional and get away from being Laurie Strode, getting away from being Michael's sister and live her life while at the same time almost completely failing. Because while she does have this new identity and she has a boyfriend and she has a son, she shits all over her life. She is constantly seeing Michael walking behind her 20 years later. She is deeply entrenched in alcoholism and she cannot shake the fact that Michael Myers might still be after her. And it becomes a classic, the boy who cried wolf, you're not prepared for him, you're not prepared for him. And then he fucking shows up and she is prepared for him. And then you get one of the best endings in all of horror, possibly in all of film, at least for me, where Laurie Strode gets Michael pinned between a tree and a van and chops his fucking head off. That moment followed immediately by Jamie Lee Curtis coming down from the adrenaline, the soundtrack is kicking, and then it goes to credits. Holy shit, that was awesome. I will always champion Halloween H2O. Now for my runner-up for favorite Halloween movie, we have Halloween 2018. This is another example of a movie that doesn't really do many things wrong for me. Even the humor, even the weird peanut butter on my penis humor, it doesn't bother me. It really doesn't at all because it fits characters. The characters work for who they're supposed to be. Oscar's supposed to be that kind of creepy friend who really wants to be with his best friend's girl but doesn't really, and then the situation arises, he gets his shit split, but that's I see that. I understand these characters in this movie. You couple that with an amazing performance by James Jude Courtney, a spectacular soundtrack, and Jamie Lee Curtis fucking on her A game, bringing back Laurie Strode in a completely broken, PTSD-ridden Laurie Strode, which is an interesting inverse to what I like about Laurie Strode in Halloween H2O, because that Laurie Strode's trying to keep her shit together, whereas this Laurie Strode is trying to just keep her shit alive, despite the fact that Michael is actually locked up. And then again with another amazing finale where you have Karen, who has been affected by all this trauma and all this PTSD that her mom has been shitting on her for years, and then it comes the moment where Michael is there and she's like, fucking gotcha. Shoots him in the face, they trap him, and they set the whole thing on fire. I love that turn for Karen. I love that she's like, okay, no, yep, this is absolutely what needs to happen. All of my training is kicking in, and fuck this guy, because he has made my life a living hell. And had they ended it there, Halloween 2018 would have been a great send-off for Michael and Laurie. And now, for my number one spot, should come as no surprise if you've been paying attention, John Carpenter's Halloween. I won't go so far as to say that this is a perfect movie, because there are things that this movie does flub up a little bit, but this movie is awesome. I love this movie. This movie gets so many things right. You don't get the villain reveal until Linda's death. You have an awesome soundtrack by John Carpenter. Jamie Lee Curtis is on point. Nick Castle is on point. And despite the fact that he was drunk a lot of the time, Donald Pleasance is on point in this movie. Everybody brings their fucking A game. You couple all of that with, and I know I have said it a lot, but the ending of this movie is spectacular. It is one of the most iconic endings in all of cinema. You have him shoot Michael 6 times, and then he's fucking gone. Credits go through all the locations, and then boom, and it's black. Whew. Awesome shit right there. There is not a day in the year where you could ask me, Dave, do you want to watch Halloween? And I will say no. It could be Christmas and we could watch Halloween together. I love this movie that much. And now I turn it over to you. Where do you rank the Halloween films? Especially I want to know where you put kills and ends, because those movies have divided this fan base. If you want a more in-depth look into how I feel about the Halloween movies, this is my review playlist, and this is the 31 on 31 I did, where I put the Halloween movies against Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, and ranked all of them at least up to that point. Go check that out. I will see you in the next video. But until then, take care.